All right, do we have a picture yet? Almost. Guessing we do. And there it is. All right. So, good. Hey everybody, Jem Schofield here with the C47. This is an unannounced live stream because I suck. Because it's been a really busy week and we'll see if anybody shows up. Hold on one second. Logitech. Got to open up my software here, have a little bit more control over the camera, which is impossible. Let's see, there we go. That, pull that down a little bit. We'll get there. All right. See how this notification system works out. Got some sun glare coming right onto the computer there, and it should work out pretty well. Good. Okay. So at least somebody's watching. Hey everybody, Jem Schofield here with the C47. It is Friday. I don't even know what day of the week it is. Well, I know what day of the week it is. That shows you how tired I am. Friday, March 10th, 2017, and I blew it. Well, technically I didn't blow it because on Tuesday we shot our first sort of alpha beta version of our new show, Camera and Flask. That was myself, Caleb Pike, and Ben Barden. We're going to be shooting another one next week, and I think it'll be a little bit more official, but we're still trying to work it out. And the reason I didn't shoot a Wednesday episode is because I was in the city and I was working. So by the time I got home, it was a, whoa, yes, it is intense, Steve. I know. It's do you see it bouncing off of the screen here too? This is sort of my attempt to get a live stream in today. And I'm going to try to take my big bald head and cover it that way. So, my ear is glowing. My ears are glowing. Look, check it out. So I would say that the thing about production is, hey, D&T Studios, that with production, you know, everything is fine until you roll camera. So, for instance, earlier today we went to a park to shoot something. Not only had it been snowing, but it was it was windy, and then all of a sudden, right before we rolled camera, we heard geese. So you know that's what happens. So today we have glowing ears. So how's everybody doing out there? How's it going, George? Good to hear from you. I hope the event went well this week, and we are just going to talk about a couple of little things here today. Not a lot of stuff. It's not going to be a long episode, and I'm assuming that it's Steve Martin from Ripple Training who is here with us on the live stream. If you don't know anything about Ripple Training, you should, especially if you are in the world of post-production and you are using applications like Final Cut Pro 10 and DaVinci Resolve, among others, including also Motion. So those guys produce really fantastic educational, what do we call it? Training for post-production. Something I used to do in my former life, and now I pretty much stay in the production world. So with my glowing ears, we're going to talk about a couple of things. As always with every live stream, you are welcome to ask questions about production in general, lighting, cameras, you're trying to figure stuff out. I'm here to hopefully help you do all of that stuff. And I do have a web presence somewhere in this world on the internet universe. That's me, Jem Schofield, and that's the main website. And if you get something out of these live streams or my vlogs, then please subscribe to the YouTube channel. The more subscribers I have, the more time I can create content. So there you go. So if there's any questions, you just fire them out to me. I will be reading the live stream, live chat, and I will try to answer them as we go along. I was thinking this is probably about a 15 to 20 minute episode. I've got some baked potatoes in the oven for the family, and there's a British term which is called knackered, and that is exactly what I am today. Knackered is sort of exhausted beyond comprehension. So I think I've been getting up on average at about 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning all week, and just sort of go. This is pretty typical pre-NAB, which is a trade show and conference that happens every year in April. And because I do a lot of work for manufacturers in the industry, even if it's quiet like it was over the holidays this year, right before NAB, for some reason, it starts getting real busy. We need content, and I'm not complaining. Man, that is a strong sun coming through here. I can make a pretty quick change here because that's the magic of being able to move. And check out the sun glare. Look at that. That's pretty cool. Look at that. There's the yard, so you can see what window it's coming in from. And I guess we're gonna change our scenery here a little bit, and maybe we'll make it a little bit cool. We'll give it a little bit of something. Maybe we won't. Okay, so I'm gonna go into my software here, and oh, we're talking about C100 data rate. Is it worth it to always use my Ninja 2? Good. So we have our first question, which I'm excited about. So let's go ahead and get to that in a second. I'm just going to make a quick camera change here. And yeah, I think we're good. It's a little messy over here, but who cares? So first question from Old Wave 1, whatever that means. So data rate. So C100 Mark 1 and Mark 2 are 8-bit cameras. They have relatively low data rates in terms of their recording. But they do have Canon sort of secret sauce, and I have to say that while you will eke out some more color if you go to a Ninja, quite honestly, for most of the stuff that I'm using the C100 for, I'm just recording directly to SD cards. Not always, but a lot of the time. C100 Mark III, maybe? I hope so. I don't know anything yet. And if I did, I couldn't say anything, but I actually don't. So when I do know something, then I'm just very, very quiet about it. But I don't know, and I really do hope we get something that can be a B camera for the C300 Mark II. There needs to be something from Canon that is in that space where cameras like the FS5 sit. So D&T Studios, I'm preparing for a shoot. It's going to be the first of its kind for me. And the crew, you're saying your crew is bigger than usual? Larger crew, bigger budget. I'm really nervous. Any tips or tricks? Well, I could definitely give you some tips and tricks if it's really probably less tricks, but some tips and advice if you can give me some more information about the shoot. Maybe not in the live stream, but what I would say is go to the c47.com. There's a contact page. Send me an email with a little bit of information about the scope of the project. What is it that you're going to be doing? Tell me a little bit about the location. Tell me about what camera systems you're using. And also, it sounds like you're probably going to be in some sort of a producer role as well, where you have client responsibility. So if that is the case, then let me know that, and then I will try to get back to you with some advice about that. Also let me know when the shoot is, because that will allow me to kind of prioritize in terms of getting back to you. Yeah, Steve, I have also. Steve says that he stopped using a Ninja. SD cards in dual recording mode works awesome with green screen stuff we shoot. Yeah, the truth is that the keyers are so good now, the software keyers even, that as long as you know how to light a green screen, and one of the biggest mistakes people make when they light green screens is they overlight them. you can pull very clean keys, and it's pretty exciting to be able to do all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so I would just say send me some information about that shoot that you have coming up, and hopefully you'll be doing okay at D&T Studios. So, what other questions do you guys have? I'm actually going to go grab something over there as well. Hold on, just give me a second. You know, one of the things that we use very oftentimes in production, especially now with these cameras that have high dynamic range, is we use charts. And what I'm going to show you guys is a relatively new version of a chart from DSC Labs. DSC Labs has been around for quite a long time. This chart is not a brand new chart. It's called the one-shot chart. It was designed in conjunction with and by a fantastic DP out of the San Francisco area called Art Adams. That's his name. And it's really a very, very handy chart to have around because it has all the core information in terms of skin tones, black, white, and middle gray, and also the colors that we see on a vector scope. But one of the problems has been, and the original one-shot chart was matte, but one of the problems with most of the DSC Labs charts is that they're incredibly reflective. So this new chart here is a one-shot chart, which is actually using something called AccuFlect 3. It's a brand new coating on here, and it's really sort of this perfect in between a matte, which can get beat up pretty easily because it's more sort of paper based without any coating, and the shinier version of their charts in the past. Really fantastic because it's much easier to not get huge reflections on the chart. You will see a little bit, but you can sort of see how that coating is. And I'm finding that in a production environment that this is much, much better for me. And rolling on charts is very, very important, especially when you're doing things like shooting in log and these wide color gamuts. But the problem with the matte charts is that you're not getting the same saturation out of these colors that you will out of this and out of the more reflective charts. So we have some stuff. Barry's got a question. So Barry's been using the Aputure COB chip on board 120 daylights and the Fresnel attachment. Great stuff. As much punch as a Joker 400 at full flood on the 120D. Need some barn doors. Any suggestions that will fit in the front? So the thing about the Aputure COB 120s, the daylight and the tungsten version, is they use a standard mount. I believe it's the Bowens mount that they use. I'm almost 100% sure. Yeah, it is the Bowens mount. So basically you can just go online and find barn doors for the Bowens mount. I actually recently went to Amazon and I wanted a snoot for the COB 120, and I picked one up for about $13, and you know, there you go. So let's see what else we've got from Barry. No problems for me. Old Wave 1, cool, relative newbie from DSLR World. Welcome. That's what we're about. Steve's asking me if I use YDR mode in Canon or Cinema Locked. I found the YDR profile is less grading but still good dynamic range. I can tell you, yeah, I'll try to put a link to the chart, Steve. It's on dsclabs.com, though. And I don't think that reflection coding is out yet. It's just starting to be. But here's the deal. Wide dynamic range as a custom picture in the Cinema EOS cameras is designed to be still eking out a little bit more dynamic range, but even easier to sort of bring in and start to grade the stuff. The reality is that if you use something like a C100 or C100 Mark II and you're using CP or Custom Picture Cinema Locked, where it locks down and it uses Canon log, and it uses, this is the kicker here, it uses a Rec 709 color space. So the reason it's so easy to grade footage from the C100 and all Cinema EOS cameras using the YDR preset is they're not using a wide cinema gamut or a P3 or a very large color space. They're using Rec. 709. So I used to use YDR a lot, but I found that the results I was getting were not as consistent as when I used CP Cinema Locked. So I'm using CP Cinema Locked pretty much across the boards, making some exposure adjustments, and then adding a little saturation or tweaking here and there. If you nail your white balance, I think Cinema Locked is the way to go. And just one other thing, if you dial in a color temperature, Kelvin temperature, on a Cinema EOS camera, it does not compensate for any of the basically imbalances in the lighting in your environment, because that's all you're doing. You're just dialing in a color temperature based on Kelvin. So one of the things that I recommend people do is, if you are shooting in daylight or in tungsten and you know that those are the color temperatures you're using, use the presets on the Cinema EOS cameras and you should get better results. Or you can do a custom white balance where you can white balance the camera to the lighting. It will do an RGB reading and it will actually see if the light is skewing more green or more magenta, and it will correct for that. Generally, the end result is a little bit cooler than I like when I do a custom white balance on Cinema EOS cameras, but that's also easily rectified in post-production. So definitely try Cinema Locked. And one of the things I recommend to people who are shooting on other cameras that are shooting in log is, don't use a wide color gamut. Switch it over to a Rec. 709 so you're getting more dynamic range, but you have an easier time in grading it. So discussion, George had District Digital Creatives about the Ursa Mini Pro and using it as a run and gun camera with an ISO of 1600. What are my thoughts? Well, I can tell you that the Ursa Mini Pro is definitely tuned more to be a camera that is more run and gun. The buttons and the switches and the knobs on the outside of the body, plus the upgraded UI and software that they put into even the original Ursa Mini, definitely make it something that can be that kind of camera. The built-in NDs with the IR correction, infrared correction, also make it more of that type of camera. That said, I can't speak to ISO 1600 on the Ursa Mini Pro, so I'll have to get my hands on that camera. Historically, I would say that you want to rate the Ursa Mini at 800. And when you go to 1600, you definitely start to see some stuff that you're not seeing in Cinema EOS or Sony camera systems. So I think that's really one of the big things. That's the big question mark. Can you push this camera to 1600? I think we're kind of spoiled now, and I feel that I am to a certain degree, in the sense that I know that I can push these cameras to 3200 ISO, and and I can do that comfortably. And on certain camera systems, I can go well above 3200 ISO. So when you're talking about cameras like the Ursa Mini Pro, and also to a large degree cameras like the Panasonic GH4 and possibly the GH5, though I haven't used it yet, I think that the ceiling is probably 1600 as opposed to being able to comfortably shoot at 3200, and in some cameras like the A7S II, even higher than that by far. There's a shout out from Caleb Pike at DSLR Video Shooter to Ripple Training. I see some love happening here on Friday afternoon. I am going down in terms of my my energy level today, because it's just been a crazy week. And then this weekend I'm prepping equipment and getting up at 5 o'clock on Monday. I have a shoot at Canon on Monday, and then 2 more days here inside of my studio with a small crew, probably during a nor'easter, and hopefully the winds won't pose too much of a problem in terms of audio inside of my studio. So this thing right here, again, is from DSC Labs, and it's dsclabs.com. It's called the one-shot chart, and there are some different variations in terms of sizes that they make. and also this new coating, the AccuFlect 3 coating, which I'm absolutely loving. So George is saying the color science conversation has grown over the past few days across manufacturers, and it's interesting. Yeah, the color science conversation for me is something that I've been talking about for quite a long time. You know, when everybody was saying it's got to be 4K, it's got to be 4K, it's got to be 4K, and we've got to start shooting 4K, then companies like ARRI, meaning ARRI, said it's not about resolution, it's about color science, it's about dynamic range, it's about the image. And that's why they have focused as a company on all of those other aspects of what the camera can do, and they feel that that's more important. And if you saw Guardians of the Galaxy #1, that was shot on an ARRI camera, shot on Alexa, and it was, you know, it wasn't shot at a resolution that was even 4K. It's a 3.5K sensor. So basically, you just have to understand that that's not really the most important part of the camera. And if all of the other things are correct inside of there, then it's, again, it's a color science. You know, it's all the other ingredients that make it up. It seems like Blackmagic has come a long way in terms of color science. I think that Canon is doing a bang-up job in the, you know, we call them cost-effective camera systems, if you consider the C300 Mark II cost-effective. Some people do, some people don't. I think that that's a great camera system. And even Sony has come a long way. I think that Sony has realized that that kind of broadcast look that they've had for so long is not necessarily the way the industry is trending in terms of the kind of content that we're creating. So they are creating modes like they have in the FS7 and also their higher-end cameras, but bringing it into an FS7 called Cine EI, or Exposure Index, where it really is about and focused on making the camera act more like a digital cinema camera and tuning the color science and the sort of LUT workflows to that whole mentality. So I think it's exciting stuff overall, and I think we're seeing a lot of changes overall in the industry related to that kind of stuff. Any other questions that we have for today? Ken's been having a conversation with his students a lot regarding 4K and the difference between resolution and quality / color / bit rate, etc. And this is the conversation we should be having. We've already licked the resolution issue. Whether or not ARRI decides to come out with a 4K plus sensor anytime soon really isn't the issue. I mean, George just said it. Logan looked pretty damn good shot on the Alexa 2. It looked fantastic. That's the point. It's not about number of pixels. It really isn't. And you can have the crappiest little camera and it's 4K. Doesn't mean anything. I always say this, and I'll say it a million times. You can take an action camera, a GoPro or some other such camera, a small drone camera, a cell phone, smartphone camera, and Triax rules. Okay, I like that little tip of the hat to film. And you can take those cameras, and in ideal conditions, small sensor 4K cameras can produce amazing images in ideal conditions. It's as soon as those conditions are no longer ideal that the entire building crumbles. The foundation is gone. And that is the big difference between what we're talking about as soon as we start to move into even the bottom end of digital cinema cameras. Data rate, in terms of how high the data rate is that you're recording, your bit depth, how good the color science is, what color space you're capturing in, what color space you're targeting, how you're dealing with high dynamic range in terms of luminance values. Are you shooting in log? Are you shooting in raw? These are the conversations that have to do with real world production and sort of where we're going. And then we won't even today get into the whole monitoring aspect. I'll talk to you about all that stuff in the future. But yes, there are so many ingredients that make up a good or a bad picture, a good or a bad picture. And it's something I think we're going to be talking about a lot as we start to move into what we are calling on the consumer side HDR, which sort of encapsulates everything. It encapsulates resolution, color space, high dynamic range in terms of the dynamic range of your camera system, frame rates. It includes all of that stuff. And when we look at things like HDR10 and Dolby Vision, as that starts to get incorporated into our television sets, and we start to see more stops of dynamic range in the images that we are watching, and we see more of the color space, which, by the way, is already being captured by most of the digital cinema cameras. It's also going to change the way we shoot, the way we light, and it's also going to change our production workflows in terms of LUTs, because right now when we look at a lookup table, when we're shooting in a flat log way, with a wide color space, we're generally putting a Rec 709 LUT on there because that's the color space that most of our displays have. But we will be moving to different color spaces in the future, like P3, Digital Cinema Initiative P3, which is actually part of the iPhone 7 and the MacBook Pro. And we will also, and by the way, that is your digital theatrical color space, DCI P3. But we'll also potentially be moving to an even bigger color space called Rec 2020. I've talked about that a little bit in prior episodes. Memo Montesinos from Mexico City is here, and he is a photographer and a good friend of mine. I've known him since I was 14 years old. What can you say? Thank you for the kind words about my Linda courses. I have 2 of them at the moment. Third one coming out in a little while. The first one's called Cinematic Video Lighting, and the second one is called Advanced Cinematic Video Lighting. So Ty asked, does HDR mean that delivery has to be in 10-bit color space? It can actually, depends on the standard, but yes, at a base HDR in the consumer delivery way, whether it's HDR10 or Dolby Vision. Dolby Vision is really pushing 12-bit. Man, this is a rabbit hole that's probably not going to be today's episode because my mind is not where it needs to be to take you down this path. And I also need support materials. And not emotional support, but really just some charts and images to show you guys to get into all of this stuff. I get into some of this stuff at NAB when I teach, and that actually my NAB sessions have now been finalized. I'm doing 2 field trip sessions on the Saturday and Sunday, one on corporate in-house production and one on cinematic lighting. And then I'm going to actually do an Alexa Mini 2.5-hour session at the show as well, which I'm very excited about, to start showing people that camera system and ways that I think it can be used. I think we got to go. It's almost a half an hour. I love that people showing up. River thinks that it's time for me to be done as well. Clearly she's barking to have my attention, or somebody who's walking by with a dog. Thank you very much for showing up unannounced in terms of me. I did not announce this stream. And I will try to come up with something next week. Monday's going to be tough, so I'll try to shoot something on Sunday for Monday. And then we'll try to do something from the studio live with John and Dan as we are deep into shooting our videos for Canon those 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. Thanks again for coming, and I'll see you guys hopefully next week.